Today I'm going to redraft the 2025 Dynasty rookie class for you guys. It was a very interesting class going into rookie draft season, and it's just been absolutely exceptional as we see these rookies perform early in their NFL careers. There's some big high risers and some big fallers in this class, so let's take a look at where they stand now. So first, I'm going to show you here some of the rankings from before the season. So these are the Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings. It maps pretty well where your rookie drafts would have been, what they would have looked like ahead of the season. I will note that in the D tier, we should have two more players here, Jalen Milroe and Jack Besh. They just weren't included in this tier maker set for us. But let's jump right in here with our first tier. And I will say off the bat, we're going to do the top 24 players in this class so far this season. And it's going to be for Superflex leagues with no tight end premium. So in this bottom tier here, in this E tier, we start off with the 24th ranked player, and that is Trey Harris, the wide receiver for the Chargers. Now, he is stuck on the depth chart behind QJ, Ladd, Keenan Allen, so it makes sense that he's not going to be super productive early on in his career. We have seen recently, though, he's 6 straight games now where he's seen 40+% of snaps. So he's starting to work in more into this offense. But it's really next year that I expect a breakout can really happen for Trey Harris. Keenan Allen's probably approaching the end of his career, or at least maybe the end of his tenure with the Chargers here. And with how good of an offense that this Chargers offense has, and that's without their top tackles, their star tackles for most of this season, Herbert is just a great quarterback. This is a great situation for the wide receivers on the team. I also don't have a whole lot of faith in QJ regaining that hot start to the season. His involvement in the offense hasn't been as prolific over this second half so far. And really, I was just very high on Trey Harris going into draft season. I really liked on film what he did at Ole Miss. And I think that people are a little too early to write off these wide receivers stuck on heavy depth charts that have a good situation that could open up for them very quickly. So that's why I'm including Trey Harris in these rankings. Moving on to the 23rd ranked player in this class, we have another wide receiver, Jaden Higgins. Kind of a similar situation, good offense, good young quarterback to be paired with, has a chance to rise up the depth chart, but maybe starting off a little farther back. Now, Higgins, I don't think had as much difficulty moving up early on the depth chart, but he hasn't really started out as strong as people had hoped. He isn't someone I was as high on going into the draft season, but really there's just a lot of opportunity still here for Higgins, and I'm by no means writing him off after a slow start to his career. Xavier Hutchinson isn't really a long-term impediment. I'm not confident that Tank Dell can come back after that gruesome injury and multiple big injuries for him and being an undersized wide receiver. And really, I just see such a ceiling with this offense, this Texans offense with CJ Stroud leading the way, that if it does reach that ability and Higgins can take over that number 2 role, which he would be the favorite to do, then the ceiling is very high for Higgins in this offense. Next up at 22, we have here Torrey Horton. Now, Horton was much lower going into the season in many people's rankings than the other wide receivers on this list, but he's absolutely taken advantage of his snaps early on. 5 touchdowns already on the season for Horton in this offense. You can see that Cooper Kupp just doesn't have it anymore. He's reaching the end of his career, and as he fades into obscurity for fantasy and the NFL, Horton could take over the number 2 wide receiver role on this team. Now, right now, it's not the most prolific passing offense. They've been more of a run-heavy offense, and the passing game that has been there has gone to JSN. I think that is more of a Darnold issue than it is a Clint Kubiak play calling situation. Yes, they might want to lean more to the run, but I think, well, Darnold has done well. I think he still limits this offense in their passing game, and I don't see him as the long-term solution at quarterback for the future here in Seattle. I do have confidence, however, in Clint Kubiak and his ability with this offense. And I think the wide receiver 2 for this team could be very valuable as a complement to JSN. Next up at 21, we've got Luther Burden. Now, I think he was the highest rated prospect in this group here by many going into this season. That's despite Higgins being drafted a few slots ahead of him in the draft. But Burden showed just on film and with his sophomore season in college just how explosive he can be. Now, going to the Bears is a mixed bag of a landing spot. Obviously, very crowded room ahead of him with DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, even also drafting Colston Loveland, a prolific pass catcher in the first round at the tight end spot. But this Bears offense has really taken off with Ben Johnson taking over play calling duties. Caleb Williams is looking more like the prospect people saw in college, and I think all the doubts around Ben Johnson being able to make that step, not with the Lions, is long gone for a lot of people. He is really doing well with this offense. Now, Burden in the future, I think, has just so much potential. DJ Moore feels like not a long-term option here in Chicago. If the Bears do move on from him, or if there's just injuries in that wide receiver room ahead of Burden, then he has a potential to absolutely take off for fantasy. We've already seen hints of it, some very big plays, but the snaps haven't been there because of what they have ahead of him on the depth chart so far. All right, let's move up now to the D tier. First here with the 20th overall ranked player, we've got Alec Iamaner, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. Now, he was someone I was really excited about going into the draft process. A super great athlete in college, played in a program with Stanford that just didn't have a good offense, so that kind of limited his production possibilities there. He's also somewhat of a raw prospect. He only played 2 seasons of college because of an injury that held him out his freshman season. And that means that he came into the league kind of as a development prospect. He was very athletic, had all of the traits that you want in your wide receivers, just didn't have that production, that refined skill set. Now, it's a little funny how things work out because Iamaner has probably been the most productive wide receiver that was drafted outside of the first round of the NFL draft this season. He's averaging just under 6 targets a game. He's very involved in this Titans offense. And while the production hasn't been great so far this season, a lot of that can be blamed on just this offensive situation as a whole. Cam Ward, a rookie quarterback, there's always going to be some struggles there, some time to get into things, and we'll see him later on this list. But also just this coaching staff, there's not a lot of other talent around. So Iamaner's been kind of thrust into a very large role in this offense earlier than they probably wanted him to be. Even with the lack of weapons around him, you don't earn the kind of targets that Iamaner is getting if you are not an NFL quality player. And Iamaner has shown early in his career that he is that, with a ceiling to be a lot more. Moving over to number 19 now, we have our first running back, and that is Woody Marks for the Texans. Now, if we were talking about redraft rankings, then Marks would be among the top players in this class. That's how good he's been, how involved he's been from a fantasy perspective. The reality here, though, when we're talking about Dynasty, is that Marks probably isn't a starting running back in the NFL after this season. There's lots of running backs, rookies that get a lot of work early on just because of a lucky situation for them. Think Dameon Pierce with the Texans previously, James Robinson out in Jacksonville. But after this season, I do expect the Texans to bring someone in at a higher level than Nick Chubb at this stage of his career to compete with Marks. That is, if Joe Mixon isn't healthy and back next year, which I am doubtful of. Now, that's not to say that Marks doesn't have any value after the season. I still have him up here in the top 24, in the top 20 actually, because he is such a prolific pass-catching back. That's where he's really excelled so far this season, more so than being a traditional runner. And between that, potential through the future as that pass-catching specialist and some complementary back handcuff type of value as well, I still think he has value on your Dynasty rosters. It's probably just not going to be at the same level as we're seeing this year when he's the starter. Moving on to 18 here, and this is the one player that you're not actually seeing the picture of on this graphic here, and that is because he just was so under the radar going into the season. He wasn't in anyone's top 24, let alone 36, maybe even in most top 48s, even in your 4-round leagues. He probably wasn't being drafted, or at least not earlier than at the end of the 4th round. And that is Rondé Gadsden, the tight end for the Chargers. Now, it was just really surprising. A late round tight end, undersized, not a good blocker. It wasn't expected that he was going to take over this job, maybe not even make this team. But he has. He's claimed this starting job, and he's being used heavily as a receiver as well in this very good Chargers offense. He already has this season 5 games of 5+ receptions. As a rookie tight end, that is just absolutely exceptional. Moving up to 17 now, we have Bashal Tutin. Now, this Jacksonville offense has just got me so excited. Multiple different reasons, but the running back position for fantasy is one that I just can't stay away from in Jacksonville. Travis Etienne has been a terribly inefficient running back the last few years, and then Liam Cohen comes in, brings in this new offense, and Travis Etienne looks like one of the better running backs in the league. Now, I think that Liam Cohen and this front office and this team as a whole know that this offense can raise the floor for their running backs. And so I don't know if Travis Etienne will be re-signed by the team. I think he might get a bigger contract to start somewhere else. And the Jacksonville Jaguars can feel confident in that because they invested a pick in Bashal Tutin last year, someone they were very excited about, and someone who's looked very good in his limited snaps so far this season. Now, I'm not saying it's a guarantee that Tutin will be the starting running back for this Jaguars team next year, but to rank him at 17th in this class, I absolutely do not need to expect him to be the starter. Just the chance at being the starter for this Jaguars offense is more than enough to have him ranked this high. On to 16th now, we have Matthew Golden, the wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. Now, his season's been disappointing so far. You can't deny that. He came into the year with a great opportunity with Christian Watson out and no true wide receiver 1 on this team. Then Jaden Reed goes and gets injured early in the season, and Golden just really couldn't take advantage of that opportunity early on. That doesn't mean that he won't be able to succeed or even go into that wide receiver 1 role later in his career, maybe even later this season. It just didn't happen right away. Even in college, he was more of a late breakout at Texas, so it's understandable that he might take a little bit more time to develop his game in the NFL as well. I think even his fantasy performance so far this season, his statistical output, has been a little bit misleading. There's been a lot of very close plays where Jordan Love just overthrows Golden on what would be like a 70, 80-yard touchdown, and that would drastically change what you see from a fantasy perspective for what Golden has done so far this season. We're going to go up a tier now and start it off with our 15th ranked player in this class, and that is R.J. Harvey, the running back for the Broncos. Now, Harvey's just gotten thrust into the starting role with this Broncos offense because of a J.K. Dobbins injury. His first opportunity at the starting job didn't go quite as hoped, but it did come against a Chiefs defense that has given up the 5th fewest rushing yards to running back so far this season. So we can give him a break in that first game. But he has a great opportunity ahead of him. He has the most of the rest of the season, if not the rest of the season, to prove that he can really run away with this number 1 running back spot on the Broncos, and that is a spot that is very valuable for fantasy. Running backs in Sean Payton's offenses are very often used as pass catchers. Harvey has been used quite a bit as a pass catcher this season, something you really want for fantasy. And this offense has the potential to be very high scoring, very productive, and that increases that touchdown potential for Harvey if he is that running back 1 on the team. Now, I am still a little skeptical of Harvey and his talent. Can he be this running back 1 for the team, or does this become more of just a committee situation long term that kind of dampens the upside that Harvey has? Still, a very explosive running back, can break off big plays, and while he may be boom bust as the starting running back, he has a lot of value and the potential to have a high ceiling if he can claim the starting job. Next up on the list at 14, we have another rookie running back here with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, JCM, Bill, whatever you want to call him. Now, over the past few weeks, he has struggled. He hasn't looked good like his hot stretch earlier in the season. But there's a lot of reasons for that, or a lot of explanations at least. Jaden Daniels has been injured. Terry McLaurin, I can probably just name every wide receiver on the Commanders, has been injured a lot recently. And that is going to overall have a negative impact on this offense. A lot of what makes this Commanders rushing game so potent is that Jaden Daniels is back there as a rushing threat. And we saw that earlier on with JCM having some very big plays alongside Jaden Daniels. Now, I still think the talent is there. He is very explosive. I think he's by far still the best running back on this roster. And what makes me confident in his dynasty profile is that the Commanders just have so many holes on defense that they need to fill still. And they've already lost some draft capital in trades they made last offseason. So with limited draft capital to fill those holes and so many holes, taking a running back in the draft, spending capital on a running back, probably is not the most likely scenario for them, leaving Bill with a easy path to the starting job next year. Now up to the 13th ranked player in this class so far, and that is Harold Fannin with the Cleveland Browns. Now, I've been super excited to see how well Fannin has done early in his career with the Browns. I thought it would take some time. I thought it would take until Njoku left this team for him to really break out. But they had a plan for Fannin right away, and that's using him more out of the slot as a receiver than as a traditional inline tight end. It's something that we've seen Stefanski do before, even with Njoku, but Fannin is built perfectly for this role. Now, his production at Bowling Green was amazing, set records in college football, but playing against lower competition, there were always going to be questions about whether that would translate into the NFL. I was very high on him going into the draft, but even he has exceeded my expectations by quite a bit. Now, once you get this offense right with a quarterback out there that's not Dylan Gabriel or Shadur Sanders, I think that the ceiling could be even higher for Fannin. I think he could be a tight end one in Dynasty moving forward if this team can figure out the quarterback position. I have a lot of faith in Kevin Stefanski as a play caller, and I think they should keep him around into the future, at least until they can see what they can do with a quarterback that's obviously not an NFL starting quarterback. All right, we're up to the 12th ranked player now, so into what would be a first round talent in your rookie drafts. And we're getting it started here with another tight end in Colson Loveland. Now, we talked about with Burden and the pass catching situation there, the depth chart. Same goes for Loveland. A lot of pass catchers on this team ahead of him to start it out. Even Cole Kmet, a very quality tight end himself, kind of gave the Bears the opportunity to slowly bring in these rookies. Now, I think Loveland is into his breakout, but still in the early stages of his breakout. He's seen 75% or more of snaps in 3 of the past 4 weeks, and he had his big breakout game. And I'm talking about a big breakout game for fantasy. In week 9, he had 6 catches for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns. A great stat line for any tight end, let alone a rookie tight end. Now, I think that this pass-catching group could open up a little bit, which will help Loveland. But at a certain point, I think Loveland is just way too talented to not be a focal point of this passing offense. And with how well this Ben Johnson-led passing offense has been, how Caleb has begun to take steps towards what his potential was, I think that Colson Loveland should be ranked a lot higher than people are giving him credit for right now. All right, going to take another step up into the next tier here, our B tier, and that's starting off with Cam Skattebo at the number 11 ranked player. Now, it's hard to overstate just how great Skattebo's run was before he got injured. He was a top 24 running back 7 straight weeks, and that's including the week that he got injured in. Now, I understand if a lot of people think he needs to be way higher than this. He needs to be in the A tier, maybe even in the S tier among the top players in this class. So there's 2 main things that are holding me back from ranking Skattebo any higher than this. First of all, this injury was very bad. Similar lower body serious injuries for running backs don't necessarily have a clean return to top performance. Even if he returns on the field next year, which I expect him to, he might not be back at full strength production-wise. Even after that, the second issue here is just how reckless he is as a player. Now, I get he's a running back, and his style of play is what makes him so exciting, so fun to watch, but it's also one that could lead to a lot of future injuries. I'm not saying this one was because of his play style, but future injuries, I see concussions in his future, getting banged up a lot just with how he runs. And if that's the case, then that's going to significantly hurt his value for Dynasty. Moving up to the 10th ranked player here, we have another running back, and that is Quinshon Judkins for the Browns. Now, I mentioned a little bit how I have some faith in Kevin Stefanski. I think this offense has potential to be a lot better if they can get a quarterback under center that has a little more skill than what they've had recently, and that extends to Judkins as well. He got off to a great start to his career, a top 12 running back in 2 of his first 3 games in the NFL, but since then it just hasn't been very good. His last 5 games, he's failed to crack 3.5 yards per carry, not a high mark at all, and it's just been overall not great for Judkins. Now, he does have the volume, and I think the issue here is just the Browns' struggles as a whole. Now, I still don't think that Judkins has the explosiveness to be a dominant fantasy asset, one of those guys that are in that top 8, top 5 conversation at running back every season, but I do think he has a very high floor in this offense with the volume I expect him to get. Moving up to number 9 here, we have the first quarterback on this list, and that is Cam Ward. Now, he was the number 1 overall pick. He was up in the top tier prior to this season, but it just hasn't been good for him at all, and I don't blame people if they want to have him even lower than this in their rankings, even in these Superflex leagues. So far this season, he's had less than 10 points in over half his games. He just isn't startable even in these Superflex leagues. Now, you cannot blame all of that on him. I've watched a lot of Titans film this season, and Ward hasn't looked bad. He has made a lot of very exciting plays, some very good throws, and I think he's been much more accurate than the stats are leading on. He just doesn't have a whole lot going for him around him. Alec Eilmanor has looked good, but a rookie wide receiver that was taken in, I think, the 4th round can't be your top option. Calvin Ridley is obviously past his prime at this point. This offensive line is still a work in progress, although improving. And at play calling, Brian Callahan is not an NFL level head coach or an NFL level play caller. He shouldn't have had the job to start with, and now Cam Ward's a little bit behind because he had to start with that. If they can get a decent coaching staff in there to take over this development of Cam Ward, who has a lot of potential, then I think he could be a really quality quarterback 2 from a fantasy perspective moving forward. I can see him still being a franchise quarterback, and having that potential in a super flex league deserves to be ranked this high still. All right, now we're going to move up another tier to this A tier, and we're going to start it off with a running back in Trevion Henderson, our 8th ranked player in this class. Now, Henderson is on an incredible run. He had a terrible start, wasn't getting a whole lot of touches, wasn't doing a whole lot with the limited touches he was getting, and people were really worried about him in this Patriots offense, whether he was going to be a bust. But these last few games have just been so good that that's put all of that bust talk to rest. Obviously, Henderson is an explosive, fun running back for the NFL. Now, with how good he's been recently, I think a lot of people are going to have him much higher than this in their rankings. The reason I still have him here is I'm not confident that he is going to have the workhorse volume that he's had over these last couple weeks moving forward. It's taken everything going right for him to have, well, I should say wrong for the Patriots, for him to have this situation. Ramondre Stevenson injured, Antonio Gibson injured. They're even bringing in running backs off the street that are themselves getting injured to let Henderson have this kind of a workload. I don't think this coaching staff sees him as a workhorse running back for the future and expects him to play more of a complementary role in this offense. Think more of a Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery combo rather than having a Bijan workload. Now, obviously, Gibbs would be ranked much higher than this. Henderson, I don't think, has shown nearly that level of skill yet as someone like Gibbs. But another thing going for Henderson is just how good this offense has been in New England. They've really surprised everyone, one of the best offenses in the league, and that plays very well for Trevion Henderson as well. I do have to say, him being ranked 8th here isn't a hit on Henderson. I'm excited about Henderson. I have him on one of my main Dynasty leagues. I am very excited to have him for the future. It just speaks to how deep this class really is at the top. Right, now we're up to number 7. And this is someone that I'm very excited about despite a lot of negative talk about him in the Dynasty community, and that is Travis Hunter. And I get everyone's worried about him playing DB and now this injury. It was always going to be a slower path to fantasy relevance for Travis Hunter. He didn't practice as a wide receiver while he played in college. He basically just walked on game day and played offense. He's only practicing half the time on offense in the NFL now, so it's going to take a little bit more time for him to adjust than other wide receivers. Now, despite that, despite him being more of a raw prospect at wide receiver, he had incredible production in college leading to his Heisman winning season, and he's even looked good in the NFL at that position despite limited reps in practice. Now, I'm very excited about this Liam Cohen offense. I think there's a lot of potential here in the passing game, and especially with the way that Brian Thomas has been trending so far this season, I think there's a real chance that Hunter does take over as the top wide receiver on this team. Now, Cohen has said in interviews that Hunter was intentionally limited in his rookie season. They were just going to play him out of the slot. They were going to use him in certain packages. And that's because he just, the realities of the situation, he only has so much practice time. He has also said that they plan to expand his role going into next season. So I think we need to be patient on Hunter. I think his breakout is still to come, and that despite him putting up some pretty good numbers, over 100 yards in his last game before injury. There's still a lot more to come for Travis Hunter. Now up to the 6th ranked player in this class, and this is the other first-round quarterback from the NFL draft, and that's Jackson Dart, the running back for the Giants. Now I was a little hesitant about Dart to start his when he started starting for the Giants. That hot start just relied so much on rushing production. As a passer, he wasn't showing great metrics, great ability early on. There was still some rough parts in his game. Something I expected coming into the league. I liked Dart, but there were still a lot of things for him to work on. I thought he was more of a developmental prospect. I would have liked to see him have the full year to develop. Now, a few games into his season, it's very clear that he is a very good rushing quarterback. It's going to be a big part of his game, more so than it was in college even. Now, I do think the new incoming coaching staff will manage his rushing a little bit more, coach him into being more careful so he's not left on the sidelines as often as he has been so far. But it's still going to be a part of his game that's going to very much raise his fantasy ceiling and floor. Now, add in that he has Malik Neighbors paired to him for the foreseeable future in New York, and I am really excited about the potential with Jackson Dart here. All right, we're into our top 5 now here, and with the 5th ranked player in this class, I've got Tyler Warren, the tight end for the Indianapolis Colts. Now, this is 3 seasons in a row that we are having elite rookie seasons by a rookie tight end. It's absolutely incredible based on where we were before these 3 seasons of rookie tight ends just being absolutely nothing for fantasy. Now, Warren's production, I think, is very much sustainable. Yes, this offense is playing out of their minds. This is the top-ranked offense in the NFL right now, based on scoring at least. But Warren is leading this top-ranked offense in receiving yards right now. That's just how much of a focal point he's been in this offense. Now, I have these rankings as a non-tight end premium set of rankings. If you're in a tight end premium league, even just like a half-point tight end premium, I am absolutely moving Warren up into that top tier, that S tier, with the top players in this class. He's probably a top 3 player in this class in those tight end premium leagues. Now, the last player in this tier is Omarion Hampton, the running back for the Chargers. Now, I wasn't blown away by his ability on the field early in the season. He looked maybe a little slower than he was in college, not super explosive. And this was a worry I had coming into the draft, that he didn't really have a standout skill. He was just a very versatile back. We had got a chance to see a little bit more of his versatility shine as the season started to get going, but then that injury obviously cut that short, and he's been out since. What's really impressing me from a fantasy perspective, though, is just how involved he's been as a receiver. He had 17 receptions across the 3 games before his injury, and that includes the Commanders game where he left early with injury. If he's continued to be used as that like 4, 5, 6 target a game kind of receiver out of the backfield, then his fantasy potential is sky high. Now, the other thing that makes Hampton very attractive from a fantasy perspective to me is just how quickly they gave him a huge workload for the Chargers once Najee Harris went down with injury. I expected that maybe they'd bring Vidal in for some more snaps once that injury happened, but that wasn't the case. They gave a huge workload to Hampton right away. Now, this is a Chargers offense that I'm very excited about for the future, and add in that their top tackles, their star tackles, are both injured right now. Slater's been out the entire season, and once those guys get back healthy next season, this offense, this running game in particular, could absolutely take off with Hampton at the lead. All right, here we are at the top tier of an absolutely exceptional class, and we're going to start it off here with Ted McMillan, my third-ranked player in this class. The Panthers' offense has been very inconsistent so far this season, a lot of ups and downs, but it's very clear early on that McMillan is the focal point of this passing offense, as he should be. Well, it's still very much unknown whether Bryce Young is going to be a franchise quarterback. Probably more people leaning towards no than yes, but he has shown flashes. And despite that inconsistency for Bryce Young, McMillan has just looked very good all season. As a rookie wide receiver, he's already a top 24 player in points per game, and that's with only 4 touchdowns this season. I think that's an area of his game that will just naturally progress as he continues on. I think that's a pretty low figure for someone of his size and his play style. Once we see kind of this positive regression in the scoring, if this offense can really get things together, take off, either with Bryce Young or they bring in someone else to play quarterback there, I think Ted just has an incredible ceiling. Up to number 2 now, another wide receiver, and that's Emeka Egbuka, obviously for the Buccaneers. He got off to the hottest start you could ever expect for a rookie wide receiver, just putting up great numbers week after week to start the season. And that's building off incredible camp hype as well. It was Puka-esque in how he did as a rookie early on. Now he's come down to earth a little bit. This is more what I expect, some 7-8 point fantasy production in there as well. But he's still among the top dynasty wide receivers, and definitely, I think, still the top dynasty wide receiver in this class. He's got a lot of good things going for him. Baker Mayfield at quarterback has pretty much proven all the doubters wrong. He is one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. He's shown that multiple seasons in a row here now. The only other competition for Egbuka in this offense, really at the wide receiver position, are 2 aging, injury-prone wide receivers. We might see Mike Evans gone very soon. Chris Godwin, we're not even sure, coming back from injury, whether he can reclaim any of that specialness of the last couple years. Egbuka has cemented himself as the top wide receiver in this very good passing offense. Now, while I'm a little bit more hesitant to put him into the top tier of dynasty wide receivers overall than some people are, I still think Egbuka is a great wide receiver that any dynasty manager is extremely excited to have on their roster. And here we are, the number 1 player in this class for me, and it's the same player that everyone had at number 1 going into the season, and that's Ashton Genty. Now, production-wise this season, he hasn't been the top player in this class, but there are some very obvious reasons why that is the case. Running backs in fantasy are so dependent on the team around them. They need a good offense to thrive. It's very, very rare that you get high-performing running backs out of bottom offenses in the league. Well, the Raiders are a bottom 3 scoring offense in the NFL right now, and despite that, Genti is still a top 20 running back in points per game. Now, there's a lot of things wrong with this offense. Geno Smith hasn't turned out the way he was in Seattle. This offensive line needs a lot of work still. But I think the core of this is just the offensive play calling. Chip Kelly has not had enough success in the NFL to continue to get jobs the way he does. You can't use your sixth overall pick running back for less than 12 carries in really any game, I think, in the NFL season. He's done that 3 times already across only 10 games in the season so far for the Raiders. Now, something stands out to me. There are 29 running backs in the NFL with 100 plus carries so far this season. Genti ranks 26th in yards before contact. It just shows how poorly this offensive line is played, how poor the play calling has been to work against some of those deficiencies personnel-wise. Now, I'm not worried too much about the future. Genti has showed how skilled of a player he is. He was incredible in college. He's shown those same skills in the NFL now. He's just bouncing off defenders, breaking tackles, fighting for extra yards. A very strong running back with explosiveness as well. As soon as he gets into a mediocre offense, if they can build here with the Raiders, and I think with Pete Carroll they can build a competent team around him, then he is going to be among the top running backs in the team. With the off chance that this becomes a very good offense, then Genti becomes like a Saquon kind of player that we saw with the Eagles last year. And I have him right among the top dynasty running backs for that reason. Now, if talking about these NFL draft classes is your thing, go ahead and subscribe to our channel because we are going to continue talking about the upcoming NFL draft class, the 2026 class. We already have tons of content. Check that out if you're not familiar with this class yet. I am later on going to as well compare this class, this 2025 class that we just talked about, to the 2026 class so you can get an idea of where the strengths lie in reference to a class that's already playing in the NFL.